We ended off yesterday on Daf Chof Aleph on the base. I believe we just got up to the Mishnah. I don't think we got past the Mishnah. So we'll start from the Mishnah on Daf Chof Aleph on the base. Zok Tahilag Mishnah. Lo Yarba Lo Susam. A king is not allowed to have too many horses. Ela Kedei Merkavtoi, only enough to support his army and his entourage. He's not allowed to have too much money. Ela kedei litain Aspanya, only enough to pay schar chayalois midei shana b'shana hanechnosim vayotzim imoy kol hashana, to pay for his entourage. And they write for him a unique, special Sefer Torah for him. And Yosy when he goes out to Milchama, Motzia Imoy, it goes with him. Nichnas humachnisa imoy. It comes with him. Yoshev bedin, if he sits bedin, he imoy. It stays with him. Now the question is, we learned that a melech does not sit bedin. So could be it's referring to Malchus Beis David, because we said Malchus Beis David does sit in din. Or there are those Rishonim who learn that he doesn't sit in a regular din Torah, but if there's something going on in his own household, in his own court, there he would be the din over there. So he emulates with him. Mesav, if he's lying down, he can negdai, it's right opposite him. Shenemar v'hoisa imoy, the Torah must be with him all the time. The karaboy koli mechayav, and he will read it every day. Tanu rabbanon lo yarba l'susam. A king may not have too many horses. You might think he's not even allowed to have enough for his entourage, just only his own personal horse. For his own personal enjoyment, if he's an equestrian and he wants to collect horses, thank you so much, Wati. That's not allowed. Of course, he could have as many horses as he needs for his army and for his entourage. Hamani Mekayim Susim, I does say he's not allowed to have many horses. Susim Habatlonim. It means horses that would not serve a purpose. They're just there for beauty and for his interest in collecting them. That wouldn't be allowed. Minayin Shafilu Sus Echad Ruhubatul Shubula Yarba. How do we know that if he even entertains one extra horse, he will be over the lav of Layarba? Talmud Leimer Leman Harbe Sus in single form. Even one sus violates the Isser of Layarba. Since even one extra horse triggers the Isser, triggers the lav, so why does the Pasuk use a Lashon of Rabbim, Susim Lamali? If it only said so singularly, if he had one extra or 100 extra, it would be one lav. The fact that it says lo yabel susim tells us for every horse that he has that he doesn't need, that horse is another lav that is being over. It's only because the pasuk said loy that we are increasing his amount of horses to include his whole entourage. Had it not said loy, what have amina? Logic that defies logic that a king shouldn't be able to have enough horses to serve his army and to serve his entourage. The reason why it says loy is to tell you, of course you can have that. But are you allowed to have any spares? Are you allowed to have any extras? The answer is yes. If you just have just enough, then you don't have a plan B. You don't have a contingency. So Avada, he's allowed to have extras too. It just means he cannot have like show horses over and above what normal due diligence requires that an army should have. Very much. Zok the Gemara weiter. V'chesed v'zov loy yarbaloi ela kedei litain aspan. He's not allowed to have too much extra cash, but he does need to have enough money to pay his army. You might think he shouldn't even have enough money to pay his army. Talmud Omer Loi. For his own personal benefit and use, there he's not allowed to have extra cash. Of course, he's allowed to have enough money to pay his army. Because of Rachmana Loi. It's only because it says Loi, do we say he's allowed to have money for his army? That's not logical. Of course, he needs to have money to pay his army. Again, you need to have extra money just for a rainy day. Something can go wrong. So he is allowed to have an extra amount of money. It's just not too much. After the Amr loyal drasha by loy of Susim, we said it's to tell him they can have extra. By loy of money, it's to tell us they can have a little extra. What about loy yabba loy noshim? Is he allowed to have a little extra? So your loy yabba loy noshim my derived. So it's different. He's not allowed to have any extra. But it's lemute adjoitos. A hedjit is allowed to marry as many women as he wants. He has to have kedusha and ksuba, but a regular man is not limited to the amount of wives that he can have. At least not by the Torah. Zoltimar Viter. Rehuda Rami. Rehuda Hastir and Psukim. Tzivahil Shloimoi Arboim Elef Arvois Susim Lemerkaftoi. He had 40,000 rows of horses for his entourage. Uchsiv Vahil Shloima Arbos Alofim Arvois Susim. He only had 4,000. Okay, how do we make these two psukim work together? It's tabloid. So if he had 40,000 stables, then each stable had 4,000 rows of susim. It's tabloid. So and if he only had 4,000 stables, then then each one had 4,000. So 4 times 140. 4 times 40 is 1,600,000. That would be 1,600,000 rows of horses. It doesn't tell us how many horses are in every row, how long the rows are, but that's a lot of horses. Money in Shlomo's household, in his machas, was nothing. In other words, there was so much money had no value at all. That sounds like somebody who doesn't earn it. So, but the Gemara says, but the Pasuk says somewhere else. Money was like stones. So stones they're not uber valuable, but they're still something. So you see, there was a notch down. Something occurred where money had no value because it was so plentiful, to the point where money was so plentiful, but it had some limited value. What happened? Before Shlomo married Baspira, he was on the highest madrega, and there he had money unlimited. Even after Shlomo married Baspira, he still had a lot of money, but it wasn't the same. Omer Rabbi Yitzchak, B'shor shenosa Shlomo es Baspira. It seems like Baspira had an Amazon account. She had Amazon Prime. B'shor shenosa Shlomo es Baspira, Yared Gavriel Amal came down, and he plunged a post into the ocean. The hella sirtoni that started to build up debris. The olav nivne krach gadol shabaremi, and that's how Rome was established. So it sounds like it is. What is that boot? The boot that Italy's on. Is that called the Iberian Peninsula? The whole peninsula. It sounds like it wasn't there originally. It's landfill almost. It's like landfill. It used to be
Iberian Peninsula, Spain.
Okay, but I'm in the same world. I'm on the same globe. That's close. Uh-huh. So is there a name for that peninsula, or is it called the Italian Peninsula? I'm not sure.
Don't know.
So it seems like that wasn't always there, and that is like landfill. The Omer Rabbi Yitzchak,
Rome isn't in that boot part. It's more, up the leg, further up the leg.
Not where the toes. It's further up. Right, so that would say that would say that it's are we saying that the lower part would have been an island once upon a time? Or that was all water and that all built up because of that? That I'm not sure about.
Or it could have just been that area where Rome was.
So the whole book was there, just missing one section, and that post got it to fill in.
Yeah.
Okay, that could be as well. I tried to look up satellite pictures from the times of the Beis Hamikdash, but they don't go back that far. Why is it that the Torah doesn't share with us the reason for many of its halachas? Because 2 times the Torah did it and it led to problems. Sharei shtei mikrois nisgalu taimon and nichshel behen gadol oilam, and the great Shlomo Melech was nichshel. Tiv lo yar v'lo noshim, and Omer Shlomo, that's the reason I'm different. Ani arba v'lo yoser, I'm not going to be turned away from Hashem. Uchsiv, and what happened? Ahi la'ez zikna Shlomo nashoyav hitu es levavai. So even Shlomo Melech was nichshel. Had the Torah not written a reason, Shlomo wouldn't have been able to say the reason doesn't apply to me. Why? Because we don't want someone going back to Mitzrayim to buy more susim, because Mitzrayim produced the best horses. Shlomo, I will be able to have more horses. I won't go back to Mitzrayim. What happens at the end? There was a lot of business going on where the Eden were buying horses. Shlomo was buying horses from Mitzrayim. The Maharsha explains, so why Taka did the Torah write the reasons in these 2 places? Zokt the Maharsha, in all other places, the reason for the prohibition is not an Isser Mineba in and of itself. Isser could have been given to avoid a certain problem. But here, there is a law of Loyaser Slavovai. There is a law for someone's heart to get turned away. There is already a law that says you're not allowed to go down to Mitzrayim. So since the danger that could occur that led to saying Loyar B'Loi Noshim and Loyar B'Loi Nususim is in and of itself a law, that's why the Torah mentions why it is. Zokt Gemara weiter. The Choyz Sefer Torah Lishmoy. Melech has to write a Sefer Torah Lishmoy. Personalized, special Sefer Torah. Tana b'dut, u'bilvad sheloi yisnoe or lo yisgoe b'shel avoysav. I understood that to mean, maybe I'm going to check the article, they can't use his father's Sefer Torah. He has to make his own. Is that how the article touches it? Okay. Omer Rabba, Avapi, shehenichu lo avoysav la'adam Sefer Torah. A regular person, not a king, even though he yards the Sefer Torah from his father, mitzvah lichtov mishaloi, there's a mitzvah to write your own Sefer Torah. Shenemar, the ato kisu lachem es hashira. Every person has a personal mitzvah to write the Sefer Torah. Esei Abai had a kasha. The choice of loy Sefer Torah l'shmoi, shaloi yisno or yisgo b'shal acher. That's what it says about the king. Melech in Hedjit loy. So it's mashma Hedjit does not have a personal chiyuv to write a Sefer Torah. He could have a Sefer Torah from his father. A Yochid has to have one Sefer Torah, but a Melech has to have 2. And we're talking about the second Sefer Torah. Uchiditanya. The Chos of Lo is Mishnah Torah, means Mishnah Torah meaning 2 Torahs, Chos of L'Shmoi, Shtei Torahs, Achas sheyoytzes v'nechnesas imoi, v'achas shemunochos loi v'bnei zknozov, and one that he keeps at home in his storage. Oisha sheyoytzes v'nechnesas imoi, the one that he takes with him wherever he goes. Oisha kamin kameya, it's written like kameya, v'tola bazari. There are those Rishonim who learn that it's only the Asheros and Dibrays, because it would be very difficult to write a kameya on his arm of the whole Torah. Shenema shavisi Hashem l'neg disamid. It will never leave my right hand. Really? He used to wear a braid. He used to wear like a necklace. Really? It's like a necklace to save it there? Wow. Wow. Okay, it's up to Gemara right there. Everybody knows the story. We're talking about everyone has to have a Sefer Torah. So some people, in your 20s, you can't afford to write one. You get older, you can afford to write one. So there's a famous story with a guy who was in his 90s, and you wrote a Sefer Torah, and you donated it to the Besmedrash. And his friend asked him, I don't understand, you're 90s. You were rich since you're 20. You were always rich. So why would you wait till you're in your 90s to write a Sefer Torah? You could have written a Sefer Torah when you're in your 40s. You could have given it. Why did you wait until now? So he tells his friend, you and I both know that I'm not such a holy guy. Look where I'm not supposed to look, and I speak when I'm not supposed to speak, and I go where I'm not supposed to go. I know the Achamei investment, they're going to run me. Now I'll be able to tell them all those errors that I did were before Matan Torah. Zot Eile Gemara weiter. Ein Nichnas Ba, V'lo Lebeis HaMerchetz. He cannot go into the Beis HaMerchetz. V'lo Lebeis HaKisei, not the Beis HaKisei, with the Sefer Torah. Shneimar, V'ha'isa Imoi, V'kara Boi, it'll be with him and he should read from it. Mokam Ha'ar Likros Ba. He's only allowed to take the Sefer Torah in places where he would be allowed to learn from that Sefer Torah. Amar Zutra V'Teilah Amar Mar Ukva. I'm sorry? B'tchila Nitna Torah Yisrael, the Ksav Ivri. Originally, when the Torah was given to us, it was not written in the font that we currently use. The font that we currently use is called Ksav Ashuris. Ksav Ivri was a different font. Could be, you know, in the old coins, you see a funny, a funny font that we can't even read. So it could be that. I wasn't able to get a picture of what it looks like. And the Lashon HaKodesh, of course, the language of the Torah was Lashon HaKodesh. It was given to them again, the Ksav Ashuris, with the new font. The Lashon Arami was written in Aramaic, and Bir Lahem Yisrael, Klal Yisrael decided that we're going to have Ksav Ashuris for Lashon HaKodesh. Our Sefer Torah are written in Lashon HaKodesh, and the font used is the current font that we have, our block letters. The Henichu Lejoitos, and they left to the Hedjoitos, Ksav Ivris, the old font, and Lashon Arami and the Aramaic language. And when the Hedjoitos, Amar B'chista Kutoi, the Kusim, use a different type of Sefer Torah. Frag the Gemara, my Ksav Ivris, what is this Ksav Ivris? Amar B'chista, it's Ksav Livuna, it's the Ksav of Livuna, which Rashi teaches as Oisios Gedolos, large letters, Ken Oish Chekoisen, the Kameros, Umuzuzos. I'm not sure what this means. And mezuzah, most people learn Rashi doesn't mean the regular mezuzah, because those are also in Ksav Ashuris. It means on the outside of mezuzahs, they would make some writings on it, and that's where it would be written differently. Tosfos says Livuna might just be because it came from that region, but Tosfos is another mechudesh pshat that Livuna means they would blacken the whole cloth with ink, and the oishis would be written in white on black, meaning they would then scrape away the black ink to reveal what would look like white letters. But Tosfos says that would be very problematic because that's called chok toiches. You're not allowed to, if you make a samach, you're not allowed to fill in the whole area with ink and then scrape out the inside to make it into a samach. Writing means you're writing it properly, you're not erasing some. So Tosfos says by get it wouldn't be kosher, so that's why Tosfos doesn't like this pshat. But there is a big shaila about it actually. Linyan Hilchos Shabbos. Linyan Hilchos Shabbos. Let's say you have a ches and you need 2 zayins, and you cut it off, you scrape away. Legabe Hilchos Shabbos, that's considered a malacha as having written 2 zayins. But not necessarily does it mean that it's a kosher except for ksiva sefer Torah. Well, there are acharon that bring a raya. Since it's a malacha and it's called ksiva, it must be a good ksiva. So there's a discussion about it. Where are we up to? Mark Shavuos Amar B'chista Ksav Livuna. Tanya Rabbi Yosy Omer. Royu Hoya Ezra Sofer was in touch in high madrega. Shatinasa in Torah al Yadel Yisrael. Ilmalo the kid Moshe. If Moshe wouldn't have already been mekabel the Torah on behalf of Klal Yisrael, Ezra Sofer would have been ready to do that. Where do we see that? Moshe Omer Moshe Allah El Ho Elokim. The Ezra Omer who Ezra Allah mi Bovel. Ma Aliyah HaOmer Kan Torah Af Aliyah HaOmer La'alon Torah. And the Mashar speaks out. Moshe was going up to Shemayim. Ezra was going to Eretz Yisrael. There's 2 different types of Aliyahs. Dr. Marshav about Avira Eretz Yisrael Machkim. That's why going to Eretz Yisrael is a place also of Kabbalah Torah. Okay, so let's go more weiter. B'moitze hu omer v'oisi tziva Hashem v'ezahi l'lamed eschem chukim u'mishpatim. And by Ezra you find a similar nusach. Ezra omer he Ezra heichen lanu. Let me see if I can read it. The Bach changes the wording a little bit. Ki Ezra heichen levavoi lidrash es Torah Hashem alakav v'lasos u'lelamed b'Yisrael chokum mishpat. The Apapi for nitne Torah al Yodai. Even though Ezra wasn't Zeicha to be Makabal the Torah on behalf of Kal Yisrael, but he created a major change in how the Torah is learned. Nishtan al Yodai changed to him, Haksav. So that's when we changed to Ksav Ashuris. We were originally using this Ksav Ivri, and we changed to Ksav Ashuris. That's something that Ezra Sofer implemented. Nemar, it says in the Pasuk, now we're finally on that for Beis, Ksav, Hanishtadoin, the new changed Ksav, as Rashi touches Ksav Shadishtana, the changed Kosov Aramis. It was the font of the new font in Aramis, Umutorgim Aramis. Uksivit says, and this pasuk is by the story of Belshazzar when he violated the Kelim of the Beis Hamikdash, thinking that the 70 years that Golus was supposed to last had passed, and that we weren't nigal, so he assumed that there will never be a geula. So he pulled out the kelim from the Beis Hamikdash that until then he was intimidated to use, and now he defiled them. So it says over there that a magical hand came out of nowhere and wrote a message on the wall for Belshazzar, but nobody was able to decipher what it meant. And the pasuk says, "Loik halang ksava lemikra upashra le'dalamalka." It was some type of writing that no one was able to decipher to explain to the king what was written there. Uksiv, it says, the Uksavis Mishnah Torah Zois. It says in the Vorm, Hashem commanded Moshe to write a Mishnah Torah. So you see, the word Mishnah Torah is telling us that Ksav Harei Lishtamis. So already in the Torah, it was merumas that there's going to be eventually a change in font. The Torah was originally given with Ksav Ivri, but the Torah is being around is that sometime in the future, through Ezra, there's going to be a new way to write the Torah, which will be Ksav Ashuris. Lama Nikra Ashuris. Why do we refer to this particular font as Ashuris? Sha'Allah Imayim Me'Asher. Because they brought it back from Asher. Asher was where they were in Golus. They brought that back with them. Tanya Rabbi Omer. Now this is going to be a little bit hard to process, that the Torah was given in a completely different writing, so that's going to come into a discussion soon. Tanya, we learned, Rabbi Omer, B'tchila b'ksav zeh nitna Torah liYisrael. Fakert, Avada Ksav Ashuris was the original writing in which the Torah was given to Klal Yisrael. Even Shachatu, but Bibal Klal Yisrael did Averis. Rashi says even during the period of the first Beis Hamikdash, Nebach Lahen Leroyitz, they forgot the font, and therefore they had to start using a different font because they forgot how to write that. Even Shechazru Ben, but once they did tshuva during Golus Babel, they did tshuva. Then that font was reestablished for them, and that's what it means that Ezra Sefer brought this new font. He just helped reestablish the old font that they forgot because of the various that they did. So we're still going to need now another shot in the Kosovas Mishnah Torah Zois, because Mishnah Torah Zois no longer refers to the font that was going to change, because it was always the original font of Ksav Ashuris. Shenemar Shuvu Libitzaroin. So Rashi says, come back, L'ir Mivtza Shalachem L'Yerushalayim. Come back to your fortified city. And it was referring to Ba Yisheni Kamisnaba. He was saying Nevuah about Ba Yisheni. So come back to your fortified city. Asira Tikva, those who are constantly locked down by their forever hope. In other words, you never gave up. You hoped they were going to come back. Come back. Gam Hayoim Magid Mishnah Ashuvla. Today, Zok Rashi Magid Mishnah, Masha Shachachta. Magid Mishnah means I'm going to tell you what you forgot. Masha Shachachta Ish Mishnah Torah Zois Ashuvla Dobi Achsir Loch Masha Shachachta Ish Mishnah Torah Zois. I'm going to give it back to you. In other words, the font that you forgot, I'm going to give it back to you. Lama Nikra Shema Ashuris Usheres Biksav. It's a big, beautiful way to write it. I wonder if the font on the original Sefer Torah of Ksav Ashuris was the Art Scroll print, or was it the Hebrew Publishing Company print? Zog the Gemara weiter. No, we know what it was. It's the Safras, but it was it was just returning and reestablishing the same Zachariah Novi. Zog the Gemara weiter. Rab Shimon ben Elazar Aimer Mishum ben Elazar ben Parta. So Amar Mishum Elazar Hamoidoi. Ksav ze Eloi Nishtan Kolik. The Ksav never changed. So he agrees with the second shot that we have from Rebbe, not like our original shot that we had, that it was done later, not like a Yosy. Rather, he holds like Rebbe. In fact, the Ksav Ashurs was always the Ksav that was used. Not only that, we know it Shinemar, we know it from a pasuk, from several psukim. One of them is Vavei Ha'amudim. If you remember, Vavei Ha'amudim were the hooks that were called Vavim because they were in the shape of a Vav. They had a long horizontal section, and then they pointed up a little bit, right? It was a hook. So the word Vavei comes from the structure of how the letter is written. So clearly, that's how it was written then as well. Vavei Amudim. Ma Amudim lo nishtanu. Just like the Amudim never changed. Avavim lo nishtanu. So clearly, it's that original Vav. As Rashi's Vavei Amudim, you say this kesef, these were little pegs of silver. Hasuyin kimin unklois the kavim b'amudim. They were nailed into the top of the Amudim upon which were hung the kloim. So shebehem chaytchem lulois, they would cut little loops. Toichem lulois kalei chotzer v'mosach. So the curtains of the chotzer had holes in them or loops on them. They were hung over these vavim. B'cholon kalois doing levavim, and all of these hooks look like the letter vav. So Allah b'mi Moshe asuin avav kagoin shalom. You see that even in the times of Moshe, the vav was written in our fashion. It also says in the Megillah. So can we say this is the Lublin hits again because of Purim's on its way? Ve'el haYehudim kiksavam v'chol. Meaning it was written to them like they were originally. This is in Golos Bavel. This is in Golos Bavel. Mal l'shayim lo nishtana. Just like their language never changed. Av ksavam lo nishtana. So these are all rise against the first Shita who held that originally we had Ksav Ivris. Rather clearly, you see, we always had Ksav Ashuris. Elamani Mekayim es Mishnah Torah Zois. So what is the Merumas in the pasuk of es Mishnah Torah Zois, which up until now we learned it's because the Torah is already being meramis that the font will change, but here the font never changed. It's l'shtei Torahs. It's referring to the two Torahs that a king has to have. Achash sheyoytza v'nichnas imay, v'achash shemunachas loy bebeis knosov. Oisa sheyoytza v'nichnas imay, oisa kamin kameya v'toyle b'zroi shedemar shevishi Hashem l'neg yisamid. One will be with you all the time. Okay, period. V'idich, if you hold that it's not referring to two Torahs that the king has, rather it's referring to two fonts. Hi Shivisi my Dorish Bay. What do we use? Shivisi Hashem and Negli Summit Hidarshin. We better look at Rab Chaim Bar Bizna, Nomer Rab Chaim Bar Bizna, Omer Rab Shimon Chasida, Hamaspalel, someone who davens, Cherech Shir Atzmai, Shayara Atzmai, Ki Ilu Shchina Kinegdai. He has to look like the Shchina is connected him. So that's what it means. Shivisi Hashem and Negli Summit, Shenemar Shivisi Hashem and Negli Summit. We expanded it. Our Shulchan Aruch says a person always has to stand Ki Ilu the Shchina is Kinegdai. I just want to peek into the Rabbeinu Chananel because he has some pretty radical words. Rabbeinu Chananel says in big bold letters, at least in my Gemara in bold letters, the Ein Halacha Kamar Ukfa. We don't paskin like Mar Ukfa, who said that originally the Torah was given in Ksav Ashuris and the font actually changed. The Hakaima, because we paskin Kitanoi like the Tanoim, V'lech Rab Yosy, and the Kaima line Kach Sheksav Zeh Nitan leMoshe b'Sinai. The Ksav Ashuris was given to Moshe already in Sinai. It makes it a little bit bigger so I can see it. Kida Amran Mem v'Samach shebeluchos v'Nes Hayamdim v'Chein Vavei Hamudim. So the Rach brings another raya. It says the Mem and Samach shebeluchos v'Nes Hayamdim. Why? Because the center had to be suspended in midair. That's only based on Ksav Ashuris. Ksav Ivri wouldn't have had that issue. So therefore, another raya that at least the luchos were written in Ksav Ashuris. Therefore, of course, the font of the Torah never changed. It was always the original print. Rav who Rav. We consider Rabbi Elazar Madoi a Rav connected him. So he goes on and on about you can't possibly say that things changed. So there are those who explain, I think it's the Ritva explains, that could be the Luchos were given in Ksav Ashuris, but or maybe even the original Torah was given in Ksav Ashuris, but it was such a holy language and such a holy print that the Yidden didn't feel comfortable using that font, so they used another font, and since they didn't use it, they forgot it, they forgot how it looked, and that's why Ezra had to reestablish it. Okay.
Yosy,
Yes.
an argument could be made that Asher's is the original Lashon HaKodesh, because before the Dora Flaga, there's a pasuk that says that Asher moved away before the Dora Flaga. And therefore, when all the languages changed, they weren't there. They weren't even there, Asher. And that is the original Lashon and Ksav HaKodesh.
That's interesting to know, because so you're saying not only did they take with them and preserve a language, which we also preserved, but they also took with them and preserved the font that they never forgot, and that was the original one that was from day one. So it wasn't introduced to us when we got the Torah. The Torah was written in a language and in a font that we already had for years and years that went with Asher.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. Because if the Torah was given in a new language with a new font, how would anybody understand it? So it makes sense that the Torah was given in a font and a language that would have been the most original. Okay, gewaltig. Okay, zog to Gemara weiter. So what about my like halang ksava lemikra? We said that when the wording was written on the wall by Belshazzar, nobody was able to recognize it. If Ksava Shuris was something that was used for many, many years, so how is it that nobody knew what it said? Rab, because Bigamatria Ichtiv. It was written Bigamatria. Bigamatria here doesn't mean our Gematria with numerical equivalent. It just means it was written in a cryptic fashion that would be difficult to understand. For instance, Bigamatria what was written? Yatis Yasich Adach Pugchamat. That's what it said. And with Atbash, if you switch the letters to their counterparts in Atbash, my Parshlu, what did it say? It said Mana Takalu Parson. That's what it said once you decipher it. Now, once you decipher it, what does it mean? Zok to Gemara, Mana means Mana alakach machuzach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu examined you to weigh you and to see how well you're performing. Takal takilta b'maznaya. So takal means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu weighed your maisim on a scale. Upartin v'shtaklech chaser. I'm sorry, and you're deficient. So mana means Hashem looked into you. Takal means He weighed your maisim tovim and you're highly deficient. And upartin means prisas machusach. Now the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to break and strip you of your malchus. V'yehivas l'moda uparas, and it's going to begin to give it over to Moda Uparas, which was Achashverosh, which leads us into the story of Purim. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel says it was a different configuration. It was Mamtus Nunakvi A'ara. What does that mean? What that means is that the words were scrambled, and one of the Mefarshim explained that if you would write them vertically, then that's what it would look like. So they wrote mana, mem, the nun underneath it, and the aleph underneath that. So mamsum nanakvi alrin, it would spell it out. If you created the matrix and you wrote the words vertically, that's what you would get. Rabbi Yechon Amar, anam. In other words, the words were scrambled, meaning the first letter was switched with the last letter. Instead of man, it said anam lakas nisrapu, but it still meant the same thing. Vashi Amar, nama. So the second letter was placed first, capital person. So being that the words were written scrambled, no one was able to decipher what it meant. Okay, I'm sure today the old ladies who do those word scrambles in the newspapers, or the ones that play that, I forgot what that game that everyone plays is. What? What's the name of that game? There's certainly with the numbers of his Sudoku, right? They would have had no problem. They would have been able to tell right off the bat what the message was.
Where we're going, that's everything's gonna be written.
I'm sorry?
That feeling next week where we're going, that's everything's gonna be written.
The Zok to go right there. Very good. You're not allowed to ride on the horse of a melech. And you're not allowed to sit on his kisei. I remember once in yeshiva there was a special bathroom that was for the Rosh Yeshivas. Do you remember that bathroom on the main level? And on Purim they put a big sign on it that said Al Kisei Lo Yeshiv Zor. Remember that? You're not allowed to use a stick. You're not allowed to watch him while he's getting a haircut. And not if he's not dressed. And not if he's in the Beit HaMerchatz. He's not the type of guy that you're going to sit down on the bench in the mikveh with him and say, you don't do that with a king. Avishag, who was the beautiful young woman that was prepared for David HaMelech, because he was cold at the end of his life, muteres l'shleima. It would be muter for Shlomo to marry her. V'asura l'Adonia, but it would be also to Adonia. Why? Muteres l'shleima, the Melech Hoya. He was a king. Umelech mishtamish b'sharvut eshel melech. A melech is allowed to be mishtamish b'sharvut eshel melech. But v'asura l'Adonia, you know why? Because Adonia wanted to be king, but he never was. They had you to. Zot Gemara Avishag Maihi. Who was Avishag? Tichsiv v'amelech David Zok and Rabbi Yom, who's getting old. We need to find a woman who could warm him up. They found a beautiful, beautiful young woman. She serviced him. She warmed him, but the Shoseu, and she served him. She said, listen, we have such an intimate type of relationship. Why don't we get married? David HaMelech said, seriously, you're also to me because I'm allowed a maximum of 18 wives, and you would be number 19. Now, those who bring a riot from here that he couldn't even take her on as a pilegesh because he's limited to even 18 with a pilegesh. I think couldn't ask that question.
What did one of the 18 wives like
I guess they were getting older. They were getting older. Only a young woman could do it. Need I explain? I'm late. So you know what she told him? I know why you don't want to marry me. You don't want to marry me because you could no longer perform. I'm surprised she wasn't afraid that she would get her head taken off with a claim like that. So the Ben Yoda has a pshat that I didn't look up that explains that this was much tifer azach and it wasn't what we know what the Pasha pshat is. But she said once the Ganav loses his skills, he's not able to do it anymore, so now he becomes an honest person. As Rashash Kishaganav Chosar, if he can't steal anymore, he acts humble. So she meant to tell him, you're making believe like I'm offered to you, it's because you can't do it anymore. David said, you think I can't do it anymore? Let me show you something. Call my first wife. It says, he went into the room with David HaMelech, and Amar Yehuda, Amar Rab, after Rabia, she wipes herself. So she did that 13 times. So he says, don't tell me I can't perform. 13 times he did it. So it's because like what I told you that I'm limited to a maximum of 18 wives. Did you ever? I think we need to refer to explain this.
We just finished talking about 5,000 this is like.
I hear. How do we know that it was actually 13 times?
No,
how do we know that that's what the pasuk means? The pasuk doesn't say that. Well, I don't know, Avishag must have witnessed it, because otherwise what's he proving? Obviously, Avishag witnessed it. So I want to draw your attention down to the actual pasuk, and I'll tell you where you know from. So I'm going to read the pasuk. It's the letter Yud Gimel over here in my Gemara. It says over here, "Vatolai bas shava el melech hachadra." How many words is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 letters, right? And then let's read the next end of the pasuk. Yeah, and then it says, "V'hamelech zokein ma'od, v'avishak hashunam mismasharis es hamelech." How many words are there in that pasuk? I think there's 14 words. Am I right? There's 14 words in the pasuk. But if Bas Sheva is 1 word, then there's 13 words in the pasuk, right? So I think this is learned, or Shon, this is learned from the fact that there are 13 words in the pasuk. That's how we know that there were 13 bees. I'm sorry? That's right. That's right. How many you make shnechecha? So they bring a raya from here that Bas Sheva must be 1 word. So it's very negated. They bring a raya like Abba Hilchas Gittin. If they're writing the word Bas Sheva, that it must be 1 word, because otherwise the words of the Rishonim who say that we know that it was 13 bees because of 13 words, it really would have been 14 words. Elamai Bas Sheva must be 1 word. Okay, so to come over weiter. Amar Shaman Bar Abba, Boyu Kama Koshin Gerushin. See how tragic Gerushin is. So David Melech, he tirul liyachid. They allowed him to be miyachid with a pnuya, meaning with Avisha, because he wasn't married to her. But v'lo yitirul legarish. Wouldn't it have been so much simpler if he would have just divorced one of his 18 wives, and then there would have been an available slot? So you see, Gerushin is such a tragic thing. Amar Beliezer, Kol Lagarish is his story. Rishona, one who divorces his first wife, Afilu Mizbeach murder of Demois. Even the Mizbeach cries for him. Shenamar, V'zoi Shenis Tasu Kisus Dimo, Es Mizbeach Hashem Bechi Vanoka. Me'enoid Al Penois Al Mizbeach, V'lakachas Rotzen Miyetchem. Someone who I know who got divorced told me that when the Rav told him that the Mizbeach is married Demois, he said, better the Mizbeach soll sein married Demois, the Ich soll sein married Demois. וכסיב, אמרתם, על מה? על כי השם העיד בינך ובין אשש נורך אשר עתו בגדת בו והיא חברתך ואשש בריסך. I believe this is also the way the Masechta of Gittin ends. Amar b'yochanan v'temer b'lozer, ein nishta shel adam meisa elam kein mevakshin mimenu mamoin ve'ein loy. A person only loses his wife if he has chayvus with the Rebbeinu Shalom and he doesn't have the schutim. So of course they won't kill a wife for her husband's affairs, but it means let's say she had a gzeir of misa for her own, and he would have had schutim that could have saved her. If he doesn't have those schutim, it won't save her. Shnemar v'me'elach l'shalom lama yikach mishkafcha mitachtecha. I think this is also used in the Gemara Nedarim, where it says if someone doesn't pay off his Nedarim, he could lose his wife. If someone loses his first wife, it's ki'ilu chor beis hamikdash b'yamav. It's as if it's like churban bayis. Shnemar ben adam hineni lokech mimcha es machma beinecha b'magefa lo sispe lo sisaved lo sivka lo sisaved demascha uksiv v'daber alom b'beker v'tomas ishtei be'erev. So which Navi was this? This was Yirmiyah. Who was this? It was Yecheskel. So when he was told about the Nevuah of the Churban Bayis, his wife died. Amar Alexandri, Kol Adam Shemesa Ishtei B'Yamav, Rachman L'Tzon, if someone loses his wife, Olam Choshech B'Adai, his world becomes darkened. Shenemar Or Choshech B'Aloi, in his tent, the light goes dark, V'Nei Olav Yidach, and his candle is going to be dimmed. He has shorter steps, meaning it's hard for him to take care of himself. He's not able to maintain the same gait and the same life. Shenemar Yitroi Tzadi Oinoi. He needs his wife to consult with, and he loses that as well. Shenemar Vatashlichei Atzosei. Amar Rabba Bar Chana Amar B'Yechanan Partial Azavlam Kakriyas Yamsuf. Putting a couple together is difficult to the Rebbeinu Shalom Kriyas Yamsuf, Kevayochel. Shenemar Alekim Moshe V'chidim Beisa. So talking about marriages, making shidduchim, Motzi Asirim B'choshoros, which is taking Klal Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. Atikri Motzi Asirim, Alekemotzi Asirim, Atikri B'choshoros, Ale B'chiv Sheros. I guess referring to B'chiv Sheros, referring to taking us out of Mitzrayim in Kriyas Yamsuf. Any that so we are Rabbi Marav Arbam Yom Koy Mitzir Savaz Baskel Roges V'Meres Fast Ploni Ploni. So you see, it's just announced. Why is it such a big deal? So tomorrow Lakasha Habazivik Rishon Habazivik Sheni. By Zivik Rishon, it's just a baskel. Yet Tosha still says even by Zivik Rishon, Aydei Tefillah, things could be changed. Amar B'Shmuel Bar Nachman L'chol Yesh Tumura. Anything has a replacement. Chutz Meishes Nurum, except the wife that you married when you were both young. That's a relationship that there's no replacement for. That's right. Zivik is not kosher because that's nigzar from the Rebbeinu Shalom. Shenemar, it says in the pasuk, "Ve'eshes nu'urim kisimas." I'm not sure what the pasuk is referring to, but it's telling us that there's nothing that's like losing a wife. Masnila Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yitzchak Barei. Ein adam moitzekar yisruach elamish terishayna. A person only gets a geschmack, a real enjoyment from his first wife. So this is Rabbi Yehuda talking to Rabbi Yitzchak. And he was talking about Rabbi Yitzchak's mother. Your mother, I only have nachas from your mother. You're gebenched and you're happy from your wife that you married when you were both young. So his son Rabbi Yitzchak could go in, man. Who are you talking about when you say it's so wonderful, the relationship you have with your first wife? I'm talking about your mother. I'm talking about your mother. Is that really the great relationship that he had with his mother, who we're talking about Yehuda? Is that the relationship Yehuda had? You know what else Rabbi Yehuda said about his wife? A woman is even worse than death. She traps us and causes us trouble. She throws us in the doghouse. And again Rabbi Yitzchak said, who do you mean, Tati? Going man, your mother. So Gemara, not a kasha. Miskaf takifa iburim avra b'mila. Yes, they can get angry and lose their temper on you, but you can calm them down and talk to them. So therefore, it must be noach. She might be easy to get upset, but she's also easy to console. Maveresh l'midaisa is what the Rashi says. Now, the Rebbeinu read the comments on it. Is Rabbi Yehuda really bad-mouthing his wife to his son? That doesn't make sense. So Rabbi Yehuda explains, is every person has milas and chesronis. And even Moshe Rabbeinu, he had the nature of a gangster, we learned, right? But he overcame it. So that's really all he meant. That your mother is perfect, but even if she had in her things that she overcame, so she's avada perfect. But Lamaisa, there are things that every person has that they work on, and if they do work on them, they're perfect. Amar Shmuel Bar Unya Mishmei Derav. Isha Goylamhi. A woman is an incomplete keli before she's novellas by her husband. Dena Kareses Bris Ella Lami Sha'asa Kli. Who does she bond with ultimately? The one who made her into Be'ula, her first husband, who formed her the Kli Shenemer Ki Bay Alayich Aisoyich Hashem Tzavach Hashemai. Tana we learned. Ein Nishmeis Ela. When someone dies, who feels it the most? Who suffers the most? His wife. And vice versa, the spouse feels it the most. So you see, Nomi felt the brunt of that loss. Yaakov said this, what do you mean a lie? Because I was the one who suffers the most. You're not allowed to look at a king while he's getting a haircut. A king gets a haircut every day. Shabbos once a week. Once every 30 days, and I believe it's on a Thursday. We'll get to that in a second. Whenever anyone sees him, he has to look like he's in his prime. He has to have the perfect haircut. Therefore, every day he needs to have a haircut. Shabbos, I know a lot of presidents that they look like they need to have a haircut every day as well. Umishmeres mischachos. Every week a new mishmar comes. When do they come? They come on Shabbos. So therefore, the Kohen Gadol has to look great in the eyes of every incoming mishmar. So therefore, he has to take his haircut once a week. Okay. Kohen Gadol echad l'shloshim yom. D'chsev v'roshim lo yigalechu upera lo yishlechu katam yichsum los r'sheim. So we're focusing on the pera. They shouldn't have a pera of overgrown hair. How long is that? V'yola pera minozer kshev hacha pera lo yishlechu. By the Kohen, by the Nazir, Gadol Peres Haroshoi, Malahar Shloshim, just like the Nazir is 30 days, Afghan Shloshim, Utanami, it's Tam Nazir Shloshim Yom. How do you know it's Tam Nazir Shloshim Yom? Also in Olam, Omer of Masno, the Omer Kra, Kadosh Yiyah is Begematria, Tlosh Hava. It's one of the only halachas that we learn out of a Gematria in the Torah. Omer of Pabla Abaye, Emer Lebu Klal, maybe they're not allowed to let their hair grow at all. It says Upera. But the Kohen is per lo yishlechu, who said you give him 30 days. Maybe they should take a haircut every day. It said first the word yishalchu, lo yishalchu, and then it said pera, k'dekarmet. Pera, we learn pera lahavi, they should have a little bit of growth, but it shouldn't grow too long, and therefore we limit it to 30 days. Why is it that nowadays the Kohanim don't have such haircuts? Why shouldn't Chaim stick to the same thing? Maybe Mashiach will come, we'll build a base of Mikdash, and you got to be ready to work. Maybe they need to have a haircut. So we're doing the yayin. It should be just like yayin. Ma yayin bisman bia the osir. Shalom bisman bia shari. After right bisman bia osir. Shalom bisman bia shari. Perhaps are allowed to drink wine today. The base of Mikdash might be built, and they'll need to do a voida. They'll be drunk. Teretz is right now the base of Mikdash is not here. Right now we could let them drink wine. So too, right now, they don't need to take a haircut every 30 days. Are you telling me nowadays, nowadays is mutter for a Kohen to drink? I'm sorry, is wine taka mutter nowadays for Kohen to drink? Rabbi Yoels Kohanim shouldn't be allowed to drink. And Rashi explains, they went through a kilkel we lost to Beis Hamikdash, but Lamaisa they benefited from it because now they could drink wine and we're not worried that the Beis Hamikdash will be built suddenly and they won't be able to do avoid it. So forget it was not bit meal. Gemara is bringing a way, in fact, that Kohen could drink wine today. Ramar Baye, Kaman, Shosi, Kahani, Chamer Ha'idna. According to who do we allow Kohanim nowadays to drink wine? Karabi, Mechlal do Rabban Nasri. You see the Rabban Nasr? So there's a difference. The reason why we would not let them drink wine today, because you have the sheet of the Rabbanu Asers, so there was bitmil. The Gemara is highlighting that the Rabbanu holds it's also to drink. So why is it also to drink? Because if the Beit HaMikdash gets built suddenly, we won't have, and we might not have a Kohen who didn't drink, and therefore we have to have them ready. If they don't have a haircut. How long does it take to get a haircut? In 2 minutes to get a haircut, then you have to go work. But when you drank, it doesn't work. Let him take a nap, clear his mind, and then he'll be able to avoid it. Traveling, if you travel from mill, or Vishina, kosher, a little bit of sleep, mafigin is a yain. That's only if they only drank revius. So you see there's a problem. So why is it that the Rabbanan say they're not allowed to drink nowadays, yet you don't force them to take haircuts nowadays? What?
Because you can't get rid of it.
I'm sorry, that's right. So the teretz is because if they drank too much wine, they wouldn't be able to rectify it quickly enough. But a haircut you could do in no time at all. But Rashi there's another reason. They're stricter with drinking because if they drank and they do avodah, the avodah is possible. True Rosh, the machla avodah doesn't possible avodah. That's why they weren't kosher. Meisvei, the Elu Shabamisa. Who's Chayav Misa? Pura Rosh, Ushasuya Yain. You know, we better stop here because it's 6:55. Okay, we almost caught up. And tomorrow will be fully caught up because tomorrow we're getting back to Masechah Sanhedrin. We're getting to the entire Zavla we're talking about tomorrow. Okay, I want you to have an awesome day.
I'm thinking though, like, there are a lot